So we're now at Garry and Hazel Miller's farm, and I want to introduce you over to these guys.
I'm Garry, this is Hazel. We're at Smithygarth, Penruddock, just on the edge of the Lake District. We've got 450 sheep, a few cows and 6,000 free-range hens. We're trying to farm in an environmentally sensitive way, at the same time as increasing productivity with our flock.
So the way that you've done it, it hasn't interfered.
Yeah, it hasn't detracted from our farming at all.
Yeah.
We're still, farming and producing. We've built our farm up. It all works together. It's an area of outstanding beauty. We're right on the edge of the Lake District. We've got Helvellyn in the distance. We've got the sheep grazing on the fells. It's a farming environment that tourists are coming to see. They want to see the Lake District, but they also want to see that it's being looked after. We're enhancing wildlife and we're farming it in the right way. 25 years ago, we set off farming with about 70 or 80 sheep. Now we're lambing nearly 450. And we've bought more land, rented more land and built up the farm business so that it's productive. But within all of that time, we've done the countryside stewardship schemes. It's helped us to split fields up into more manageable blocks that we can graze better. We've planted over 11,000 trees. I would prefer there to be more trees in them fields because that's more shelter for the stock. In winter from the bad weather, but also in summer when it's sunny. We need trees, we need better diversity of wildlife and more wildlife rather than it reducing all the time. We can still have productive farms and good grassland management and good productivity from your flock of sheep or your cattle or whatever else you've got and still have all of that wildlife. Do you want to jump over that wall or do you want to go by the gate? We'll go by the gate. Yeah, I don't want you to drop your camera. I've got a hedge in here that we planted it. This field was one field. This was about a 7-acre field and we decided that it would be better managed for us to split it up and we could graze 2 different fields and swap the stock around and such like. This is about 3 years growth here. We planted this hedge up with a countryside stewardship mix. There's hazel and hawthorn, blackthorn, dog rose. We've done roadsides where we've planted trees back in corners of fields or possibly wet bits. We tend to graze them at times. We'll maybe put tups in, 10 tups or a dozen tups or some pet lambs just to graze the areas at sometimes. So we're not, although we've put trees in, we still are going to use it as a pasture and it's still going to get grazed at some time. Hazel's grandfather that had the land before us, he retired in 1980 and there was a lot of fences that hadn't had much done with them and stuff. So fences need replacing. So at the same time as replacing fences, we thought, well, we might as well do the hedges as well. Our grassland management has improved a lot from having better fences and splitting our fields up. Because now we're doing mob grazing. Instead of having like 25,000 lambs in here and swapping them back and forward between 2 fields, we rotate them around about 10 or a dozen fields, and it might be a month, 6 weeks before sheep would come back in a field after it's been grazed. So I think that's a benefit for our productivity and our way of managing our stock, but I think it's also improving your soil structure through building better roots. Your grassland is working better, it's growing, it's getting better for the environment because it's getting longer for flowers to get pollinated and go to seed. We used to sort of worry about things going to seed and thinking your grass isn't growing as good, but when you mob grazing it, it doesn't really matter, they can graze it down and paddle some of it in, but it gets a good long rest before the sheep come in the next time. So it's a better way of managing your soil. I started farming, got really inspired to look after wildlife. We go to HDB meetings, there's quite a few farmer groups that we go to, pick a couple of things up from what they're doing. That's what got us up more onto mob grazing, but also thinking about soils more and your grassland management. I think that's probably the best thing that we've done. We've learnt a lot through going to these meetings. These other farmers that are doing it, they're a fantastic example of how good things can be. We've definitely seen an increase in birds especially. We've seen very few tree sparrows for years, but just lately we've had tree sparrows going around our hedges. We've also had greenfinch and bullfinch, which aren't usually sort of this area. Swallows and even the common species of birds, blackbirds and stuff, nesting in your hedges, and robins and stuff like that. And for years we've never seen red squirrels, but now that we've got hedges that's like this, we see red squirrels come along the hedges, you know, hazelnuts and whatever else that they're foraging for. We've got hedgehogs, you know, round our farm and in this area, and I think that's down to having this sort of habitat for them. When I laid this hedge 2 years ago, I left all the thick branches. I cleared them up last summer, and there was mice and voles and actually frogs and toads in among these branches and stuff that was left. In these areas, given a chance, the wildlife is there, you know, whereas if we hadn't put this hedge in and fenced it off, you wouldn't have had any of that. I don't like the word sustainable really, because I don't think we don't want to be sustaining what we've got at the moment. We actually want to be enhancing environment, improving the way we're farming so that things are getting better. I started working on my uncle's farm when I was 14 years old. In that time, we've lost so much biodiversity. A lot of trees cut down, losing bird populations, insect populations. And what DEFRA's trying to do, I think, is trying to get that back. What they're talking about, that being a public good, I think that is a public good because people want to come to the countryside and see that there is still wildlife alongside farming.
What's your thoughts on transition over these next few years?
Losing the single farm payment, you know, it's going to make a big difference. Because of not making as much profit, we're looking at different ways to get more incomes. I've been a self-employed plumber more than 30 years, but always wanted to be farming. Probably your easiest way to diversify is like what I'm doing, and that's for one of the people on the farm to work off farm doing something else. So that's an income stream then.
You know, low acreage is what we've got, so we have to utilise every bit we've got and make it work, haven't we, really?
Yeah.
We invest in the hen shed, a 6,000 unit. We're in a farm shop selling our own lamb, our own pork, eggs and honey. Miller farm tours, getting people on farm to tour around and explain what we're doing.
But I actually want to show people the reality of farming, the lifestyle and everything else, but connect people back to the food production, where lamb comes from, what happens on the farm, what it takes to make profit out of things as well.
Because I came from catering, I'm looking at doing pre-made meals with our own stock and selling that in the freezers. We're going to have a night a week where Garry does a sheepdog demonstration, so we'll open it up and get everybody on farm and serve our own food. That's basically having your eggs in more baskets in a sense of income, but the problem with that is it's time, it's the ability to do all them jobs properly and have the time to do them, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
A month of lambing time and we've been off farm for 6 hours in that whole time. That has to be understood, how many hours farmers put in to try and make a profit margin on things.